listening to Lead to Greatness.
Hello, welcome. This is Lead to Greatness podcast, episode number 2. To Lead to Greatness, where we believe in helping others reach their greatest potential, and together we can change the world. Today on Lead to Greatness, we're going to be discussing boundaries. Boundaries, down. You know what I'm talking about, that point when you're trying to figure out when to say yes and when to say no. Also, if this is your first time joining us on Lead to Greatness Nation, I want to invite you to subscribe with us wherever you're listening or watching. We know that your time is important and valuable to us, so go ahead, and it'll be our goal every month to give you first class content every third Thursday of the month. I want to say a big thanks to those of you who are sharing across your social media platforms. Also, if this content is helpful to you, please write a review and rate it. That will mean a lot to me. On today, joining me on Lead to Greatness podcast, this is the none other than my wife, Cedric Francis, aka Sean, aka Baby, aka Boo Boo, my boo thing. Hey, baby, how's it going?
It's going great.
On today, we're gonna deal with this subject. Boundaries. Boundaries is one of those things that we struggle with in our life, and we struggle with dealing with boundaries in our life. And I just want to start off by asking you this question: why do people struggle with boundaries?
People struggle with boundaries because I think that we struggle with boundaries because we worry that it will interfere with our relationship with people. We worry that the other person may feel hurt or feel disappointed, feel rejected. We worry that the other person might think negatively about us. We worry that we may be letting the other person down or offending them in some way, or how they think about us. Oh, they think I'm mean. They think I'm selfish. Things like that. I think that's what prevents us sometimes from saying no, setting boundaries.
Okay, so I have a question for you. Have you ever struggled with saying boundaries in your life? I mean, how has that been on your life journey?
I've struggled with the boundary of saying no, and often because of some of the same reasons that I just shared. You know, just thinking about I don't want to hurt anybody. I don't want anybody to be offended. I don't want anybody to be upset. I don't want anybody to think I'm a bad person or think I'm being selfish. So I definitely have struggled with setting boundaries in my life.
Right. Yeah, actually, I mean, boundaries is a very difficult thing. I mean, because boundaries, especially when you're dealing with boundaries that's not physical, because here I am, I stay in a subdivision, and my home, I have a fence that's separating my backyard from my neighbor's yard. So that's it's visible, and it's something I can see. But there's also boundaries in our life that we can't see. And oftentimes we're frustrated, we're aggravated, we're agitated about the different boundaries that have been broken in our life. So I want to ask you this question. So what are some of the things, some of the areas that you think people struggle from boundaries with, or maybe not even aware of the boundaries in their life?
I think it's things that, like saying no, things like doing things that you don't want to do, giving when you don't want to give. And I mean, you know, as far as, you know, if people are borrowing something or trying to borrow money or want you to do things that you can't necessarily do, people wanting more out of you than you can give. So sometimes we struggle with boundaries. We haven't established boundaries as far as what we can and can't do, and we take on all this extra stuff, and it begins to overwhelm us and have us in a place where we're unhappy and we're unfulfilled because we haven't set boundaries to say what we can and can't do.
Right. And this is the thing. I mean, there's different areas in our life that we can be struggling with boundaries. We can be dealing with boundaries, struggling on the job. You know, oftentimes we push ourselves past our limits, trying to trying to get to the point in our career. We're trying to get promoted. We're trying to get that next raise and the next evaluation. So we do everything that we possibly can. And in the midst of that, oftentimes boundaries are being broken because we are pushing our limits. We don't have a work-life balance, and we're just going all out, trying to get these things done, trying to be a people pleaser. You want to please your boss on the job. And then there's other areas as far as boundaries is a big struggle is when we're dealing with our children. Our children. This is a very, very touchy thing. When we're dealing with our children, because we love our kids, and we want the best for them, and we want to give them, especially some of us, like myself. I grew up and I didn't have much growing up, and now thanks to God, I'm fortunate now that I'm able to have things that I wasn't able to have as a child. And now, so here I am trying to give my our children everything, and yet and still it's very difficult, and it's very hard to set boundaries with the people you love.
Right.
Because it's easy to think about it. It's so easy to set boundaries with somebody you don't really have a relationship with. Right. It's easy to set boundaries with somebody in the Walmart parking lot. It's easy to set boundaries with people that's not connected to you in some kind of emotional way. But the people that you are close to, your family, the one that loves you, the one that you love so much, those are the one that is very difficult and very hard to set those boundaries with. Would you agree?
I agree wholeheartedly, because again, those that we love can get us to do things that we wouldn't normally do. Those that we love, we want them to be happy. We want them to be safe. We want them to feel emotionally secure. We want them to love us in return. We want them to be happy with us. So yeah, it's very difficult. It's the most difficult to set boundaries with those that you love.
We're at our church in our life group. There's a book called Boundaries by Dr. Townsend and Dr. Henry Cloud. They are actually read the book Boundaries 5 years ago. Yes, and I have to say this book was a blessing to me 5 years ago when I read it. It really changed my perspective, because here I am. Everybody that's listening, you may not be a Christian, but what tend to happen on the Christian side, and for all my brothers and sisters can relate to this, is oftentimes when we're dealing with our family, when it's time, or when you ever say no, it seems like people want to use that against you. They say the number one, what's that? You're supposed to be Christian, right? Mm-hmm. And they say things like that, and it makes you feel guilty. It makes you feel obligated to do something that you may not be called to do. Because also, we go to the scripture. Scripture says, Jesus said in the scripture, "Don't give your pearls to swines." So we have to be good stewards over the things that we have. It's okay to say no. I know it's difficult. It's frustrating. It can be frustrating to the opposite person, but it's okay to say no. Oftentimes in life, what I realize, the people, if you say no for that first time, have you ever experienced this? You say no for the first time. You say no for the first time. You say it, and the first time you say no, the people that was around you, now they beginning to separate themselves. And what that teaches me is, if I say no to you one time, the truth of the matter is that you wasn't in relationship with me as a give and take type relationship. This relationship was based on taking. As long as you can suck whatever you can get out of me, that's your whole objective. But as soon as I say no for one time, here it is, you're ready to move on, and you begin to fade away. So that's one of the things that I realized, that oftentimes that's a great indicator. So sometimes it's great to say no. It's good to say no, especially when you need to. But when you say no and people start to back away, you realize that that didn't have your best interest in the heart in the first place. What's your thought on that?
I agree. That's when you tell someone no and they pull away, it's often because they feel some type of way. They were getting a certain thing from you, and now they're no longer getting that thing from you. So if they're not getting that thing from you, then they feel like they don't want to be in relationship with you, or they don't want to be around you. And for those people that don't respect your no, we shouldn't want to be in a relationship with them anyway, because those that truly love us will respect our no. Those that truly want to be in relationship with us will respect the fact that I'm saying I can't do this, right. Or even the fact, just straight up, I don't want to do this, because you should not have to feel pressure to do something that you don't want to do. You should have the option, and we do have the option to say, I just don't want to do this. I don't have to give you this long drawn out explanation. It's just a no.
Steve Jobs said a quote. He says, focusing is about saying no. Focusing about saying no. What does that quote actually mean to you?
To me, focusing is about saying no. Is you have to say no to something to say yes to something else. So to me, what Steve Jobs was saying, in order for me to focus on my goal, there are other things that are not a part of my goal that I have to say no to. Right. There's other things, if I'm focusing on my family, then there's other things that I have to say no to. If I'm focusing on myself as an individual, focusing on rest, focusing on being better, whatever it is that I'm focusing on, there's other things that I have to say no to in order to focus on that, because we know that focus draws you in. So the only way to be drawn into something is the other things that is taking your focus off of that thing. You have to ignore those things, or you have to say no to those things so that you can focus on the target.
Right. And I'm thinking about that. I'm listening to you. And here it is, the quote from Steve Jobs that's saying focusing is about saying no. Here it is. So oftentimes, you really think about it, you also have to set boundaries with yourself.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes we can be all over the place. We get busy doing certain things. There's people that you ask them what they've done, and they say, man, how was your weekend? They say, oh, man, it was busy. But the truth of the matter is, they say it was busy, but they really can't explain to you what they were busy doing. And oftentimes, even within ourselves, if we're not focused on the object and what we're supposed to be doing, we would find ourselves being busy but not being productive. Right. And the thing about it, you don't want to just be busy for the sake of being busy. There's people in this world that are getting things done but not getting the right things done. And we definitely have to be careful and make sure that we're not just getting things done, but we're getting the right things done in our life. Because if you're not getting the right things done, your kids can be neglected. If you're not getting the right things done, your purpose can be neglected. If you're not getting the right things done, your marriage can be neglected. Right, if you're not getting the right things done, your finances in jeopardy. There's a lot of things at stake. Here you are, or on a job, you are fruitful on your job, but your marriage is bankrupt. You're fruitful. You're fruitful on the job, but your parenthood is bankrupt. Is bankrupt. You're about to file bankruptcy on your marriage. Your marriage is falling apart. Your children are all over the place doing what they want to do because your focus is in one area. So that is another thing, is a very important thing for us, not only to set boundaries with other people, but it's very important for us to set boundaries with ourselves.
Absolutely. Because we, if we don't set boundaries with ourselves, then we are the violators. We are the violators, and we're causing the violation in our own lives. We're causing anytime there is a lack of boundaries, there will be suffering. Anytime there's a lack of boundaries, there will be hurt. Anytime there's a lack of boundary, there will be frustration, there will be pain. And most of the time, whoever is the person that's lacking the boundaries is going to be the one feeling the frustration and the pain. Yeah. They're going to be the ones feeling whatever it is that's going on, because you're the one that don't have boundaries. You're the one that lacks boundaries. So if you lack boundaries, you're going to suffer. You're going to have pain. You're going to feel uncomfortable. You're going to feel frustrated. You're going to go through a range of negative emotions and things of that nature because you have not clearly defined what is acceptable and what's unacceptable, what you will do, what you won't do, what you are okay with and what you're not okay with. You have not clearly established that with the people in your life, no matter who those people are. If you haven't established that, then you're going to feel a range of negative emotions and things going on in your life.
All right. Now, so that's a story in the book, and in the story it talks about this woman. She went to the psychologist, and you'll share that story with us.
Yes, in the Boundaries book by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. Townsend, they talk about, there's a story in there where he's talking about parents. It's actually both parents, and they show up and they're telling him all of these things about their son, and their son is basically in a nutshell, he's not being productive. He's being lazy. He's not producing anything. And they give the doctor a list of problems that their son has. But the doctor shocks them with the unadulterated truth that you are the one with the problem, not your son.
Wow.
You are the one with the problem.
Right.
And they were shocked. Wait a minute, no, I just told you all of this about my son. And the doctor proceeds to tell them, no, you're the one with the problem because you are the one that's stepping in every time he doesn't pay his bills. You're stepping in to fix it. When he doesn't have enough money for school, you're stepping in to pay. When he doesn't get up and go to work, you're stepping in to take care of him. You're giving him gas money. You're doing this, doing that. So you're the one with the problem because you came to me and you're frustrated. He's fine. He's happy. He's enjoying life.
Yeah.
And you're frustrated. The two of you are frustrated and at the end of your rope with him, but he is fine. So they were surprised at what the truth was. And I think that's the truth. That is something for all of us when we actually take a look at the fact that whatever is going on, whatever situation you find yourself frustrated in with a person, an individual, if you look at your responsibility in that situation, it will be a surprise to you.
I mean, think about it. I mean, that's definitely some shocking news. Here it is. You're going to somebody and you're complaining. Let's say your children, a family member. You're complaining about them. You know how they're the one with the problem because they always come to you for some type of need. But here it is. The truth of the matter is they're not the one with the problem.
Right.
Because they had a problem, but you solved it. Mm-hmm. So you solved that problem, and now you're the one with the problem. You spent your light bill money. You then gave your light bill money to a family member, and they told you they were going to pay you back, but they end up not paying you back. And here it is. At the end of the day, you are the one with the problem. So oftentimes we always looking at somebody else thinking they are the problem, but the truth of the matter is we may be the problem in that situation. We're the biggest problem. We're the problem. We're instead of helping them out, we're actually being a crutch in their life. Mm-hmm. We're being a crutch in their life.
Right. We're an enabler.
Right. We're enabling them. We're stopping them from learning a valuable lesson.
Yeah.
I mean, oftentimes there's a lesson in it, and they can't even get the lesson because here we are playing God, stopping it. We want to save the day. Right. And the truth of the matter is now here we are trying to carry a burden or carry a load that's really and truthfully it's not
somebody else's.
Right. It's not our load to carry. It's that individual need to carry that load so they can learn the valuable lesson themselves. They need to carry that load. You need to back off and if you're a Christian and you're gonna pray, back off and pray. Back off and pray and let it happen. Let life happen, and so they can learn from it. Because the truth of the matter is that's the only way we learn. We learn by experiences. And the truth of the matter is they're not getting the experience. They're not experiencing anything because they're getting what they want. So they're not experiencing anything. The one that is experiencing it is you. So definitely we have to put these boundaries in place. So what we're gonna do right now, we have about 10 minutes left, and I want to get into some action steps on what we need to do to get our boundaries in order. So what are some things we can do now to start saying no?
There's 3 things we can do, and that's clearly communicate your boundaries with other people. And when you want to say no, say no. Exercise that no muscle.
Right.
Exercise that no muscle. Say no. And the reason why I call it a no muscle is because it's just like working out or anything else. You know, in the beginning, it's going to be a little tough to say no. Especially, we've already established, especially to those that you love and those that you're in relationship with. It's going to be difficult to say no.
Absolutely.
But the more you exercise that muscle, the stronger it'll get. And you start off with the little things, saying no to little things that you need to say no to. When that voice on the inside of you is saying no, then you say no. You don't say yes when you really want to say no. So the first thing you want to do is exercise that no muscle and communicate. No, this is not okay with me. No, I don't want to do this. Or no, this is not how I expected or want this to go. Or this is not okay to go on in my life. And then the next thing you want to do.
Well, hold on. Before you go to the next thing, I still want to dig into that a little bit more, because here it is, communicating your boundaries to others. This is one thing that we must understand, is you have to communicate your boundaries to others, because you can't get upset with them when you haven't made the boundaries clear in the beginning for them to even know. I mean, because as long as you're doing it in their mind, you're communicating that it's okay. So you have to clearly communicate that boundary and saying no. The answer is no. I don't appreciate it. I don't like it, because oftentimes we expect, and this even happened in our marriage. This happened in our marriage when I told you one time. Women have tendencies to kind of
to think that you know what I'm feeling and what I want.
Right. They say things like hey, I'm tired. I'm tired. And instead of saying exactly what you want to say or what you have to say, you kind of beating around the bush, expecting
the other person to know what
expecting
you mean.
me to read your mind. And I actually told you this years. We're about to celebrate. We're getting ready to celebrate 22 years of marriage in August. 10 years in our marriage. 10 years in our marriage. Then I finally got to the point, because I was so frustrated. I'm like, man, I can't read your mind.
Yeah.
I can't read your mind. I mean, tell me
what you want.
Tell me what you want. I'm not trying to speculate. I'm not a mind reader. Tell me how you feel. If you don't like something, let me know, and let me know quickly. So the first thing about boundaries is communicate your boundaries to others. Okay, so what's the second one?
The second one, I kind of jumped into that a little bit, but that's exercising your no. You might feel bad in the beginning for saying no, and there's a little saying that is brought up in the book Boundaries, and it says, feel bad but say no anyway. So oftentimes we feel guilty for saying no, especially when it comes to those that we love. We feel like we should say yes, even if we don't want to, even if we don't feel it in our hearts. We feel like we should say yes. And so the second thing would be to feel bad but say no anyway. You might, and the reason why I say feel bad, the saying in the book is feel bad but say no anyway. But the reason why it's saying that is because what the doctor is trying to communicate to us in this book is that when you exercise that no, in the beginning you'll feel bad and say no anyway, but after a while you'll feel empowered that this is okay. This is what I want. So it's okay for me to say no, I don't want this, or no, I don't like this, and or no, I can't do this. And so after a while you won't feel bad. You'll just be able to say no. But for those that are starting out, then you just have to approach it from, I feel bad, but I'm still going to say no. Especially when your inner voice says no. Somebody's asking you to do something. They're asking you to go somewhere. They're asking you, hey, let's go to a movie. Let's go to this fancy, expensive restaurant. You don't have the money for it. Yeah. And that voice inside of you is saying, nah, say no. And you say yes because you don't want them to feel like you don't want to hang out with them. Or you say yes because you don't want them to know that you really can't afford that. Yeah. Whatever it is that. And this is a thing right here where we're talking about feel bad but say no anyway. When you're feeling bad about saying no, ask yourself why you're feeling bad.
Wow.
dig into why I'm feeling bad about saying no. Am I feeling bad because I'm thinking they're going to think something negative about me? Am I feeling bad because I'm thinking, like the example I just gave, well, they're going to think that I'm broke and I don't want people to think that I'm broke. But you're really struggling with money, but you want to hide that. So ask yourself, why do you feel bad about saying no?
Right. And you know what's strange about that is oftentimes, even looking at that perspective, we really don't have it to give. Or we already tapped out, but we don't even, we don't even want to say that we tapped out because,
And then we get mad. We get mad because, so I let, say for instance, I let my cousin told me about this emergency. They came to me, and the cousin does this all the time, just say. And so cousin came, and cousin says, oh man, blah, 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 this is going on. I need $500. Yeah. And you know that $500 is bill money, but you give it to cousin. And then cousin's like, man, I'm going to pay you back Friday. And then Friday comes around, the minute that the phone doesn't ring and cousin doesn't call at 5 o'clock like he said he was going to call, now you're mad because he didn't call, he didn't do what he said he was going to do. But what you're really mad about is that you didn't have it to give and you gave it anyway because you were worried that cousin was going to feel some type of way or think something about you. So you gave it anyway, and now you're in a compromising position because you needed that money for something. And the truth is, if you don't have and if you don't have it to give, you don't have to explain all that to anybody. You don't have to tell them. You can just simply say, I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm not going to be able, even if it's something else, I'm not going to be able to take you there. I'm not going to be able to come there. I'm not going to be able to go. It's just that simple. You don't have to give an explanation. And sometimes we feel like we have to give all of these reasons why, and that's what we don't want to do. We don't want people to be in our business per se. So we don't want to say why I can't do it or why I don't want to do it, because if I say no, then I'm going to have to explain to you I really don't have the money to do it. And I don't want to do that. Instead, you really don't. The truth is, you don't. If someone is asking for your money, for your time, for your talent, for your treasure, for anything from you, you don't have to explain why the answer is no, unless it's, a crucial situation that sometimes there are crucial situations where when you give a no, you have to explain why. But when it's something that's not that crucial, you can say no without explanation and don't feel like you obligated to give a reason why. The answer is no, and that's just what it is.
Good. Okay, so we have two already, and the first one is communicate your boundaries to others. The next thing is feel bad but say no anyway. Okay, what's the third?
And the third one would be establishing consequences for violators.
Wow. Okay, explain that.
Yeah. So, also in the book, he talks about how people will continue to violate your boundaries if there's no consequence. And oftentimes this is people that we have already allowed, because most of us, we're learning this, we're learning to put boundaries in place. So we've already established relationships where people are constantly violating our boundaries because we never established them in the first place. So now that you're starting to establish boundaries and you feel like, okay, this person is violating my boundaries, they keep pushing me beyond what I want to go, or they keep crossing lines that I asked them not to cross. There has to be a consequence. Everything in life, when you do something, there is a cause and an effect. You make a choice, there's a consequence, and you don't get to select the consequence. So when we create consequence for violators, what we're saying is, this is unacceptable, and here's what's going to happen if you continue to do this. So if you continue to scream and yell when I'm telling you that's not okay with me, I don't like that, then what I'm going to do is maybe I'm going to pull back from you. If you continue to only call me on payday to borrow money, then maybe I'm going to draw back for a little while and stop answering your calls. Whatever it is that I need for you, because the consequence lets the violator know this is not okay. The consequence lets the violator know that there's going to be something that you're going to have to deal with because you're making this choice. You're making this choice to not respect my boundaries. So they have to feel the emptiness of you not being there, or the emptiness of you not indulging in the conversation, or the emptiness of you not being around, or the emptiness of you not answering the phone for them to understand this person really means what they say. There was also another story, a great story he talked about in the book, when he was talking about a woman that constantly needed an emergency babysitter. And what he said was the woman that was doing it for her, when she established that boundary, all she did was stop being available. Yeah, you have an emergency. You really didn't book a babysitter. You got an emergency. You got to go to this meeting. And when she started missing meetings, and when she could not go do things that she wanted to do because that emergency babysitter was no longer there, then she started to make different choices. Wow. She started to get babysitters in advance. Wow. She started to ask other people to keep the kids in advance instead of this last minute continuous emergencies. So when we create consequences for violators, we're establishing that it's not okay. And here's why it's not okay. And if you do this, this is what you're going to have to live with. And if they continue to violate, then you might have to end the relationship. If they continue to violate, you might have to pull away from that friendship. Whatever it is, you have to establish consequences for violators.
Right. Yeah, and there it is. And their emergencies become your emergency. Right. You're being proactive, and you're dealing with somebody reactive. And here it is now. Now you're being reactive, and that's not even your character. That you don't even operate on that basis. So this is very, very important. And what I want to do, we was going to do something else on the next podcast, but boundaries is a very, very deep subject, and I want us to dig a little deeper on the next episode. So episode 3, we're going to do boundaries again. We're going to do a part 2 of boundaries. So I'm definitely excited for the next podcast. Excited for having my wife, my boo, on here with me on today. Again, I want to thank you for Lead to Great Nation for joining us on today. I'm looking forward to spending time with you on next month. Until then, remember, if you help others reach their greatest potential, together we can change the world. Have a good one. Stay blessed.